Well, the chairman of the Niger Governors Forum and governor of Kwara State, Abdurrahman, says the Supreme Court's landmark ruling on local government financial autonomy will relieve the burden on governors. While speaking to State House correspondents after a meeting with President Tinubu and flanked by governors Bala Mohammed of Bauchi and Hope Uzodinma of Imo, Abdurrahman emphasized that the governors are happy with the devolution of power concerning local government autonomy. He says compliance with the Supreme Court's ruling is assured, but he notes that the NGF has yet to see the full details of the court order and will need to study it carefully.
We welcome the ruling of the Supreme Court. Compliance is a given, and our Attorney Generals have applied for the enrollment order, which we'll study carefully. But by and large, governors are happy with the devolution of power in respect to local government autonomy. It relieves the burden on governors. People really don't know how much states expend in bailing out local governments, and that's the issue there. Thank you. It's not going to affect the states. We've never tampered with local government funds, so it's going to continue. What the local governments have to do is to manage themselves, especially with the upcoming minimum wage, to manage their affairs and make sure salaries are paid. Traditional rulers get the 5%, and those are the main issues. Like I said, we haven't seen the enrollment of the court order, so we really don't know what is in there. We've seen the president on various issues, from minimum wage, which he met with Labour yesterday, the Supreme Court ruling, and other national issues that concern states as well. It's omnibus. The forum will meet next Wednesday to look at the issue wholly and then come up with a resolution on that. As you're aware, the tripartite committee has met and submitted its report.
Yes.
A movement of figures is a prerogative of the president, which he will also transmit to the National Assembly for robust debate before it's adopted. We've done our part at the tripartite committee level.
Kwara State Governor and Chairman Nigeria Governors Forum there. Well, Thursday's Supreme Court judgment on local government's financial and political autonomy has raised several constitutional issues. Well, we have Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Professor Mike Ozekhome. He's also a constitutional lawyer and human rights activist. He's joining us tonight on Newsnight 2. We'll just look at the legal implications of all of this and hopefully the wider ramifications of the Supreme Court's judgment. But you're welcome. So good to have you.
Thank you very much, Nigerians.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes, indeed. Now,
Nigeria is work in progress.
Right?
We are moving.
You're optimistic about the direction that things are going now. But let's, let me just bring this clearly. How exactly are we to interpret this Supreme Court judgment vis-a-vis Section 162, subsection 6, that says, let me quote, each state shall maintain a special account to be called State Joint Local Government Account, into which shall be paid all allocations to the local government councils of the state from the federation account and, of course, from the state accounts.
Yes, I'm aware of that section.
Right.
But we shouldn't take it in isolation. What we call strict constructionists in interpreting statutes just believe in looking at the letters as they are on paper. There's what you call the mischief rule, wherein, excuse me, you look at the intention of the lawmakers when that law was being made. What did they want? By creating a state joint local government account, were they saying that this account should be warehoused for the governors alone, or for the governors to be made mere messengers, agents, to transport this money, to transfer this money to local government councils? That was the intention of the legislature. But I was happy when I heard the governor of Kwara State, speaking on behalf of all the governors, that the governors are happy about the decision. Because the common knowledge of all in this country, including cries, lamentations from the book of Lamentations by local government chairmen over the years, is that governors will lay their funds at source, take any amount they want, and then transfer to them what pleases them, those making them vassals that are subservient. When they tell them to jump, they will ask the governor, how high do you want me to jump? If the governor say run, they will ask the governor, how fast do you want me to run? Usain Bolt or Ben Johnson? So section 162 subsection 6 therefore cannot be interpreted without looking at the provisions of section 162 subsection 3, which recognizes 3 tiers of government: federal government, state government, and local government that must share from the federation account. So the Supreme Court sat and looked at it and said, hello, we are operating a federal system of government, not a unitary system. And the system of local government started since 1976 in this country. For a little historical background, Ngozi Anale there, historical contexts are usually important in looking at an issue. Nigeria operated 3 regions: Northern region, Western region, and Eastern region. Right? Up to 1963, when the Midwest region was created or excised from Western region on August 10, 1963, through the activities of people like Dr. Dennis Osadebe, Jereti Mariri, Oba Kenzwa II, Kensiti Momo, Omimi Ejo, Okechebo. They fought for it through popular plebiscite, referendum of the people. They created that region. So Nigeria now had 4 regions, each with its own constitution, while you had a federal constitution at the center that binded all, so that when there was a conflict, the federal constitution would prevail. Under section 140 of that 1963 Republican Constitution, you will see the sharing formula of federation allocations. Regions got 50% of what was their royalty from the federal government on products based in their states, in their regions. 20% was paid to the federal government of Alhaji Abubakar Tafawa Balewa at the center. Then 30% was put in a distributable account, like section 162, which was shared amongst all the 4 regions, with the region that had already taken 50% also having access to share from that 30%. It was because of this practice of true fiscal federalism that the regions could develop according to their pace and according to what they wanted. For the North, Amadou Bello, who was the leader of the MPC, who decided to allow his deputy, Tafawa Balewa, to go and be the premier at the center, so that he would remain, the prime minister at the center, so that he would be premier to take care of his people, was able to establish the Northern Nigeria Development Corporation, NNDC, by using the products, famous Kano Granite Pyramid, the hides and cotton, the hides and skin, and the cotton, to build certain things which still constitute monuments there till today. The Yankari Game Reserve, the Amadou Bello University, Zaria, the Doba Hotel. In the east, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, then later Dr. Akanu Ibiam, then later Dr. Michael Opara, were able to use the palm produce of the eastern region to develop the east, because they had access to palm produce up to 50%. Presidential Hotel, Enugu, Presidential Hotel, Port Harcourt, Transamadi Estate, Enugu and Port Harcourt, Obudu Cattle Ranch, the stadium in Enugu, he could build them. Yeah. In the West, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, the late sage, with their monoproduct of cocoa, was able to build the first television station in Africa. In 1958-59, the Western Nigeria Broadcasting Corporation. And guess what? He built the Liberty Stadium. That cocoa house is still the tallest in Ibadan till today. The Liberty Stadium, the University of Ife, now aptly named after him, Obafemi Awolowo University, a university I proudly finished from in 1980 and went back for my master's and also taught. So you know there are two universities in Nigeria, the University of Ife and others. Then finally, he brought free education at all levels to his people, which is why they are very educated. And then finally on this, the Midwest region had timber and rubber. They were able to use this, build the Ugeli glass factory, the Okbila cement factory, and such monuments. They are still there. In other words, through fiscal federalism is what this judgment seeks to bring about by finally recognizing the three tiers of government. Whereas we have been operating Nigeria as if we were two tiers of government. In 2014, we fought very hard to make the federatory units, the 36 states, just the only tier of government. But over 600 recommendations were made, that one never came to light.
You know, Professor Ozekhome, for a moment, you just turned the studio into a classroom. and it's good that you took us down memory lane. And I'm excited, well, we didn't button, we wanted you to land on this because there were some germane things. Monoproducts across these places we are used to develop the regions. Monoproducts, you can imagine cocoa. And you can go to a groundnut. So the issue now, because you're one of the proponents of true federalism in Nigeria, and that's why we're gifted and happy that you're here today live. So does this now tell us, now looking at the judgment, does this amount to the constitutional amendment we've always, sought?
I would not call it constitutional amendment. You see, interpretation of laws is the duty of the judiciary. That was why one Professor Oliver Wendell Holmes, he once told us that the prophecies of what the courts will say are nothing more pretentious, is what I mean by law. In other words, law is not just the dead letter on the paper. It is when it is interpreted. And what the Supreme Court has done is to say, hello, we are aware of Section 162, subsection 6, we talked about state joint local government accounts, where we pay money into, controlled by the governors. They were to take this money and give to the local government council. But they have not been doing that. That's why I say I was surprised at what the governor said. I'm happy to hear that. They've not been doing that. On 17th October 2020, I wrote an article. I wasn't particularly a fan of the Buhari government, but that was one of the rare occasions I praised him. He had promulgated or announced executive order 10, in which he said monies paid to the NGC, which was meant or is meant for heads of courts, both at the federal level and state level, were again being waylaid by governors and by the House of Assembly. So he made that executive order and said, hello, this money should now go directly to the heads of courts so that they will have a first line charge. I applauded that judgment, that it was good. Some people, my late mentor, one of my greatest mentors, the greatest constitutional lawyer to have emerged from the face of Africa, Professor Nwabweze, Ben Nwabweze, God bless his soul. He called me and disagreed with me. He wrote an article disagreeing with me. But I held on to my position. Fast forward. Substitute heads of course for local government councils. Substitute House of Assembly for state governors. So what the Supreme Court is saying is, we are also a policy-making court. We don't just look at law and look at the dead letters. What did this law attempt to achieve? Has it achieved it? The local governments that are closest to the people, to the grassroots, who knows that a woman, for example, may be pregnant. There's no maternity ward. There's no cottage hospital. There are no gutters. There are no covers. There are no little roads, you know.
That the local government should be taking care of.
Should be taken care of. So the Supreme Court made it clear that henceforth, governors should not touch the money meant for the local governments. They made the local government chairman Psalm 105 verse 15. Touch not my anointed do my prophets no harm.
Okay, great. I mean, this is where I should
so that is what they have done to say, don't touch that phone. Right. We grant an injunction restraining you from ever touching that phone, and from, more importantly, an aspect of this judgment being lost to people because of the bohara, the rokos over this money. They've forgotten what the Supreme Court also said about dissolution of caretaker of a democratically elected council, and then imposition of caretakers. Contrary to the provisions of Section 7 of the Constitution, which says a system of democratically elected local government shall be ensured, and that every governor can only promulgate a law which ensures their existence, finance, constitution, and operation. But we see that up to 22 state governors.
It shows something that the Supreme Court is so powerful. And because
it is.
That power, why is it that we've not seen much of that, especially when it comes to some other national matters like electoral reforms?
Yeah, we will continue to nudge them because I have my grave concern about some of the Supreme Court's pronouncement concerning certain electoral matters. Right. We will continue to push. Like I said when we started this program, Nigeria is work in progress, but we cannot give up. But we have to be careful so that the time does not run against us. Because like Chief M.K.O. Abiola, a blessed memory, I always like to mimic him. We say if it takes a man 20 years to learn madness, how many years will he require to practice it? Yeah. The truth is that the Supreme Court in this instance has done very well. Whether you like it or not, the same Supreme Court had warned us or told us or counseled us in the case of Adegoke Motors Limited versus Adesanya that the Supreme Court is final. Not because it is infallible. It is infallible because it is final. Having looked at the system of local government, which we started in 1976, you can find all the 774 local governments under the Constitution. You can find them in sections 2 and 3 of the Constitution, which we have been operating and recognized under Section 7 of the Constitution and recognized under Section 162, subsection 3 of the Constitution in terms of sharing. Why would sharing formula not get to them? It is now for the people. Should we be looking at to hold them accountable and responsible to them?
Should we be looking at reviewing the revenue allocation, as you've pointed out? And then again, there are fears, that this decision may affect or hurt, the principle of true federalism.
No, it doesn't. First of all, true federalism, before that, let me quickly take the revenue sharing.
Yes, please.
The revenue sharing formula, to me, is lopsided. It still makes Nigeria a unitary system of government, not federal. What is federal government doing that is having access to 52.68% of national income, national allocation? 52.68. All the 36 states have 26.72%. All the 774 local government councils have access to only 20.60%. That makes the federal government at the center too behemoth, too elephantine, too attractive. That is why everybody kills himself and herself to go to Abuja. Right? What this judgment has done, those local government chairmen that were not recognized, were not respected by their governors, they will now go to Abuja and sit with FAC, like state commissioners for finance. Because state commissioners for finance go to represent the state. Local government heads of finance, whatever they call them at the local government level, will now go to Abuja to say, what is it that is there for us? And the Supreme Court has said, move this money to them, because you have been warehousing them, you have not been doing that well. I've seen a new release, I don't know how far it is true, giving 90 days for the local governments, the state governments to obey, or about 22 states in Nigeria out of 36. That is, they are operating caretaker committees. And of course, you know they can only appoint their minions, their surrogates, people who listen to them, who obey them, who will say yes, sir, and nod like Agama Lizard into those offices. What the Supreme Court is saying is, you can't do that. You are bastardizing Section 7 of the Constitution. Let this money go to them directly. That is actually strengthening the principle of federalism. Right. Contrary to the argument of some people. The federal government's powers have been ceded because a local government finance head can now come and sit eyeball to eyeball with the minister at the federal level, which he or she would never have seen.
So are you certain that the glory days you spoke about, where we saw grassroots governance at its peak of development, will return?
That is what is going to happen now. Now, if the local government council chairman misbehave, the people know them. They can move to their houses. They know them. They live with them. We know that you just got allocation of 800 million naira. Why can't you give us a covert or a small road here? What are you doing with the money? They will see their lifestyle. Because up to now, when you ask local government chairman, why are you not performing? They say, Oga, the money made for us, we had that we got 1 billion. We had. But they just gave us 100 million. After paying salary, we can't do anything. How many of them do I interact with across the country? I'm a pro-masses person. So I talk to them. I understand their feelings. So what this judgment has done is to empower local governments as the third tier of government without discrimination, reduce some powers from the state governments, and even reduce some from the federal government. That is what the judgment means. It has not bastardized federalism.
Right. To what extent will the local government chairman understand the power that they wield? Because Senator Shehu Sani made a very curious statement on X today that, look, what's going to happen is that this local government chairman will be going to the governors to say, look, the money has come. What do we do with these funds?
We call it the Stockholm syndrome.
Right.
They will get over the Stockholm syndrome. The Stockholm syndrome is a syndrome where the victim continues to enjoy his victimhood. The slave will go and meet the master and say, sir, you know you just woke up this morning. You have not slapped me. You used to slap me. I want you to slap me. After slapping him, he will say, thank you, sir. Then he will lie down and say, sir, you have not walked on my back. We call it Stockholm syndrome. A victim falls in love with his tormentor. So for now, that halo will continue to be on their forehead, that they have been too used to being made puppets, servants, and that they may not easily discover that the power has come to them. It's like telling a servant to come and sit on the throne of his master. The master sits down. Then he gives a seat to the servant. The servant says, sir, you are saying I should sit down here? He said, then he leaves the chair and goes to sit on the floor.
It is because the way our elections, the council elections are conducted. So if you conduct the council elections in a manner whereby the state governors have the say,
overriding influence. Have you ever heard of a state governor losing the local government election in his place?
Never.
These are the worrisome aspects in looking at the constitution. Because if you now say, okay, INEC at the federal level, should they go and supervise elections at state level, at local government levels? Where is the restructuring we are talking about? Where is the true fiscal federalism we are talking about? So these are critical areas that the National Assembly will begin to look at in its constitutional voyage of amendments. I don't believe in all these amendments. I've said again and again that like Naaman the leper, we should dip ourselves into River Jordan 7 times and cleanse ourselves of our political leprosy. We need a brand new constitution that is autochthonous, indigenous, made by the people themselves, subjected to a referendum or plebiscite of the people, so that they buy in and have the constitution will then have legitimacy, credibility and acceptability of the people. But now that we are still using the 1999 decree 24, the present constitution is an attachment, a schedule attached to decree number 24 of 1999. So we do not have any other way but to manage with what we are having. It was not made by we, the people of Nigeria, as the preamble lied. by saying with the people of Nigeria. So we need a brand new constitution. Like I said again and again.
Some would say, Prof, that it's really not about the constitution. It's the people who run it.
No.
That if you had a perfect constitution,
see,
if the people are not willing,
the constitution is very critical.
Right,
it's the best certificate of a nation.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very critical. That was why America, between May and September 1786, went to Philadelphia in Pennsylvania to make a new constitution to give themselves a more perfect union. And that is why they believe in themselves.
We can do this again.
Yes.
Guess what?
I know it's for another day.
We've never had this time for just one man. So this is Nigeria. It's an important issue. So I want to say thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Nigeria is a living organism, a living conversation, and a work in progress.
And it must succeed.
And I will never tire talking about Nigeria because it is better to judge you than to war. God bless Nigeria.
God bless
God bless Nigeria. God bless Nigeria.